Did you know you can make money as a college athlete nowadays? Well, when I was in college, this couldn't happen. But now, thanks to a rule change, it does. And there's a wrestler we're going to be talking to. His name is Cayden Henschel. He's going to be one of the favorites to win a 149-pound D2 national title this year. He's a badass man, great work ethic, and we dive into a whole lot of things wrestling related and beyond in this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Cayden Henschel. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest, a wrestling legend, a kid that just absolutely making moves out there. Cayden Henschel, how are you doing today?
Yo, let's go, Tommy. I'm doing so good.
Dude, I've been watching you absolutely crush it online. I guess describe to the people watching this, what is it that you do? Who is Cayden Henschel?
Who is Cayden Henschel? Well, Cayden Henschel is a fourth-year college student that specializes in YouTube and wrestling. I've been wrestling ever since first grade, so I've been going on, I think, 16 years now.
You were Wisconsin State champ, right?
Yes, sir, I was. That was my ultimate goal there, and now I got to climb new mountains, going to get to that college one, so.
Dude, so I won a midget state title, but it wasn't really that official because...
Midgets? You mean a youth?
Midget was what they called like 9 and 10-year-olds in Illinois.
Okay.
That was known as the midget division. I think they probably have changed it because it's not politically correct anymore.
Because there is midget wrestling now?
Yeah, because I guess it's taken off the midget world, but... I was, I think, 62 pounds or something like that. And I won. There was 4 brackets. That's how many kids were competing. So I was a state champ, but there's also 3 other state champs at the same weight, at the same age. So I'm not an official. I think Sam Brooks, you know who that guy is?
Yes.
Sam Brooks was in the other bracket. So like I probably wouldn't have been a state champ if he was in my bracket.
Right.
But I remember winning that and then like running into the stands and my pop lifted me up. And it was just such like a beautiful Hallmark movie moment. Walk us through what it was like winning a state title, dude.
Okay, so for me, ever since I was maybe, I'll say 6, 7, 8 years old, my parents' closet, you know, no kid goes in their parents' closet, but my dad had his bracket sheet in there. And this bracket sheet, it's that silhouette of Wisconsin. And I see all the names on there, and I see his was keep winning and winning, winning. And I'm like, dude, like, this is so cool.
Your dad was a state champ.
Yeah, my dad was state champ at the same high school. So this adds to the story as well of how cool it was for me. So early on, I always wanted to get this accomplishment. And so, you know, my dad also being my coach, he coached me, never won a youth title. 8th grade, bawled my eyes out when I lost. Like, probably the worst I ever took a wrestling loss. Mm-hmm. Like, I just couldn't believe it, right? Of course, going to high school, nothing worked freshman year, nothing worked sophomore year. Junior year, this was my year. I'm ranked number 1. Going into the sectional tournament.
Woo!
Guess who does not clutch up and do chokes?
Loses twice. In sectionals, ranked number 1. Wow,
ranked number 1 in state. Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, in the finals, I lost to Jalen Spuler, so he was number 2.
I don't know who that is, but
he is on my team right now.
Oh, okay.
So he's the guy after me. He's good guy. And then in the next match, I'm just facing just some dude, regular guy, and I'm like, okay, I just want to whatever I lost, I was still mad. Freaking lose that match.
Because in Wisconsin, only top 2 go to state, right?
Yes, and there's differences with like divisions too. So this is Division 1, which is kind of
the big
schools.
Dogs.
The big dogs.
The big dogs.
Yes, sir. So that was definitely an experience. And my grandpa always told me, Cayden, win state your junior year. You don't want that much pressure your senior year. Well, unfortunately, I had to put all that pressure in senior year.
So one question I'm curious about is, and this is something I'm thinking a lot about, is I'm going to have a baby boy and I want to encourage him and I do want him to wrestle. I'm not going to force him, but what was the dynamic like between you and your dad? A guy that was really accomplished, a state champion, because in the wrestling world, you see some crazy dads, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
How was that relationship?
So definitely, man, it's almost like weirder that now that he's not my coach, because when he was my coach and he was my dad, I just thought that was my dad. Like, he was coaching me. He's my dad, just, you know, trying to make me the best I can. But now it's like he's literally just my dad now. Of course, everyone's dad is like their own coach, in a sense. But he was
like, were you doing sprawls at age 8 to eat a ham sandwich? Like, how?
I'll give you
how
this.
much did he push wrestling?
I'll give you this. He wanted us active and he wanted us doing something. And, you know, he kind of made us wrestle. But I love to wrestle. Mm-hmm. My older brother didn't. He'd eat a Pringles can right before weigh-ins. And sometimes he always made weight. But, I mean, he didn't want to wrestle. I wanted to wrestle. And before we played video games every day, because we were big video gamers early on, he said, you cannot play a video game unless you do 50 push-ups, 25 pull-ups, and 50 squats. And so like,
I like that. That's a good
And so that
approach.
was something easy that we just had to do every single time. And what also helped us early on was that we had these sheets of like pull-ups, because we couldn't do 10 pull-ups at the time. We were really young. And he's like, all right, if you guys do 10 pull-ups, I'm going to buy you any video game you want. And so having these little things, these rewards, that was really, really big for me. I was really driven by like, okay, if I win this, kind of I get this. Maybe that's not a good mindset now, but it helped me as a kid.
Yeah.
It was almost just like Jordan Burroughs' story, how his dad took him to see all the trophies before the tournament. And for him to be like, okay, I got to win. I got to want that. So yeah, I think that's what driven me early on.
Because have you ever seen dads over the top? I'll give a story. I remember the first tournament I ever wrestled at was the Martinez Elite Invitational or something like that. It was in a tiny little gym. And I remember I hadn't even wrestled my first match yet. And I remember seeing a dad like screaming at his child for losing. And I was just like, holy shit, like what are we even walking into? And I also seen like the best wrestler I've ever seen in person. I won't say his name because of I just saw that there was a lot of pressure at home where it was almost like fear-based, it felt like, or I'm not exactly sure how the relationship was, but he didn't even make it wrestling through high school because of that. Like he could have been an easy D1 All-American, and he went from being the kid that would win state titles every single year, 10 years old, 11 years old, to not even making it through high school because of their dynamic and because of the pressure. How have you seen that in the wrestling world, that crazy dad kind of stereotype?
Emotional stress is huge in wrestling. We know how personal it is. You know, especially even now in college, it's so personal. You're wearing this little dinky singlet, showing everything, and you can't get put in a splater, or you're going to be clowned for the rest of your life.
Unless you're hung like a horse, and then everyone's like, "Damn, that guy just got a new girlfriend."
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But oh man, yeah. The worst part is seeing dads yell at their kids even when they win. You ever see that?
Do you think it usually is dads that weren't good wrestlers themselves that do that?
I think yes. It's these dads who didn't accomplish their goals, and they want to accomplish their goals to their kids. And that's weird. And how do you
living
even
vicariously?
Teach parents, how do you even teach parents that you can't do that? Like, because then they're so ego-headed already. It might make things even worse.
Yeah, because it's almost like the mentality that if you lose, you're embarrassing me.
Right.
And we, the Smith family doesn't lose. We don't get pinned. And you just got pinned. That looks bad on me. It is a weird dynamic.
Yes, it definitely is a weird dynamic. And I mean, but the biggest difference between youth wrestling and now you got college wrestling is the sound levels. You don't have those moms. Get squeeze, get off your back. And you in college, it's just it's good quality wrestling. Like these are men competing, not these kids where this kid's arms behind his back and his mom's running on the mat trying to drag it away.
Yeah. Dude, that's our interesting thing about the wrestling world is the compilation of parents going absolutely nuts or jumping on a 6-year-old kids that are wrestling.
Yeah.
It's funny when I've seen it where it's the 2-year-old brother jumps onto the mat to help his big brother.
Yeah,
that's cute. That's fun. But yeah, parents go wild. I remember there was a mom in our high school that every time her kid wrestled, it'd be like, Casey, stop it. We're just dude, if that was me, the first time she did it, the car ride home would be like, Mom, I know you love me and care about me, but you are never doing that again because that is embarrassing. But she did it for years.
I can't imagine. Thankfully my mom wasn't a big screamer, and no one really is a big screamer in my family, but I hear it all the time. So
if your parents were screamers, do you think you would have said something?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. When I'm out in the mat, I want my coach telling me what to do, even though of course it's hard in the match to really hear. I'd more want that than someone saying, shoot,
Or when they yell stuff that doesn't even make sense, squeeze him, and it's what are you talking about? You know? One of the things you said is you go onto the mat and you're wearing this tight singlet. One of the things I think to grow the sport, do you think that's something that we're going to have to replace with combat, shorts?
Rash guards and stuff?
Do you think that would help grow the sport?
Yes. I'll tell you this, Flow Wrestling, I believe they still do this. They have the two pieces. They kind of have that tight compress rash guard and these shorts. And I'm like that was sick. I always wanted to watch Who's Number One because they weren't wrestling in singlets. They didn't have to wear headgear and they just go wrestle. And I definitely think that would be a great way to grow wrestling because at the end of the day, the idea of the singlet is for both of you to not have an advantage of clothing. Mm-hmm. So it's to have the least stuff as possible. But with that, the compression shirt and shorts, I think definitely. There's so many kids that say like, "Oh, wrestling's so gay," because that's the only reason is the tight singlet.
It is a little bit weird that like it hugs your wiener and like however big your wiener is, everybody gets to see. Like there's no other.
Yeah.
I guess like volleyball, like you kind of see butt cheeks. Like it's weird what
Hopefully
uniforms.
not dudes. But.
Yeah. But like it would make it an uncomfortable experience.
Yes. Especially for these guys who are going into high school wrestling not having any experience. Because these are like the best way to grow wrestling is just your friends at high school telling you, hey, come out for the team. Simplest thing to do.
And you practice wearing normal
yeah.
athletic clothes, but all of a sudden when you're competing, it's like, what is this thing that coach just handed me?
Yeah, no, definitely. And definitely I can see kids who maybe don't have the physique of, yourself just absolutely yoked out of your mind, is that maybe they have a little extra something or they don't have much muscles.
Yeah, like you see it sometimes, like maybe it's like the heavyweight JV kid who still is like a pinky-sized wiener and a big belly, and it's just like not a flat. Actually, for almost no one, it's a flattering cut. I remember I had a singlet in my closet, and I went downstairs in one just as a joke to like get my wife's reaction, and her reaction was ew. Like she was like, "Get that out of here!" Like she was. It wasn't like, "Oh wow, he's so strong."
Right.
Like it was like, "That's disgusting." And I know you have a long-term relationship, but do you have any sort of pulse on how the average female feels about a singlet?
I'll tell you what. In middle school, I know always because you have to take off your shirt to put up your singlet straps. Yeah. Always at the middle school meets, I remember taking off my shirt, just flexing as hard as I can as I'm putting up my singlet. And like, you kind of like look in the stands, like who's looking at me like with my shirt off. As a little kid that wanted a little ego boost.
Of course, dude. Who doesn't want to
do
that? The eyes of a lady
right.
saying, wow,
Right, exactly. So I think that's a big motivating factor to stay in shape during wrestling for me.
Do you think it scares people away from the sport? And let's start, maybe we can divide it up too, like where you went to school. Do you think anyone didn't wrestle that would have because of the singlet?
I don't know. It's so weird with cliques in high school, right? And for me, I wasn't vocal to a lot of people. Like as much as you see me on social media, I was that kid who doesn't say anything unless I know you. Mm-hmm. Like just very shy in that sense. But yeah, like I definitely think that, we had a kid who was he was in Jiu Jitsu a lot, never wrestled, but he ended up coming out for wrestling. And so I think in your school too, you don't know how everyone does their life and what their background is. And I do think that potentially, there were some kids that probably would have.
I think
especially football. Yeah. Especially football.
The football kids are less likely to wrestle because of what you have to wear.
Because of the singlet, yes. But I think if you didn't...
Especially like the big bulkier guys.
Exactly. And I think if you didn't have a singlet, I would say a lot of the football team would come on. I do think that.
I think especially in the hoods, that's got to be a deterrent to the sport.
Oh, yeah.
Because one, it's already a little bit weird. Like I feel like in a lot of hoods I've been to, like they're down for boxing and striking, but the second it gets down to the ground, it's like, whoa, like you almost have to like look around. Is there a rainbow flag flying or what's happening here? Like people are like start to get uncomfortable.
Right.
I think like to me, and we talked about this on your show, Clash of Combat, link is in the description. My pipe dream is to grow Milwaukee wrestling. And I think one hurdle will be, it has to be a cool looking uniform. Because if the singlet is the deterrent to getting kids to get in there and change their lives and enjoy the sport that's given us so much, then I think just get rid of it.
And the thing is, you can have a two-piece. In high school, when I think it was my sophomore year, I wore a two-piece for a lot of the year. Now I switched back to the singlet because I personally preferred it and maybe I didn't like the design, but yeah, there definitely is that option.
Can a kid in college, let's say they're competing for a D1, D2 title, can they wear a two-piece? I
feel like they can. It's no one will.
Because this is how it's always been done. We don't do that around here.
And the guys who are at the top, they've been wrestling forever, so they like just don't care about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like it's not even a second thought to them.
Yeah.
So you've gotten to see an inside look into a lot of different wrestling programs, wrestlers. I think growing up, the team that was the most intriguing was Iowa because there's like one, and that's a documentary I would love to do. I know I talked to the Brands Brothers media director, and he looked at my channel and said, no, Brands Brothers, if you happen to listen to this, anyone connected to Iowa wrestling, I want to do a documentary on the world's hardest sport, and I want to go to your school to do it.
Have you gotten to wrestle at Iowa? Because I saw you training with Spencer Lee a long time ago.
Yes, we were. I think that was a year ago, actually, just from recently. And we did not wrestle because this is right after his double ACL surgery on his knees. But we,
worked out.
Yeah, we worked out. We climbed rope, did some weights, and wow, like that is. I can tell you, like if you wake up every day, you go in that room, wow, you just feel motivated.
If you were in high school and they offered you a full ride to Iowa, would you have taken it?
At the time, 100%.
Yeah. It almost sounds scary to me, like knowing how tough it is there.
Yes. Okay. Hold on. I'd have to think. I really would have to think, because if you think about it too, at the time, I'm just a one-time state champ, never placed at Fargo. If I'm just going to commit just to never start, what fun is that? Like what?
Do you feel like
what influence could I bring?
You would adapt to the level of the room?
Yes, because I iron sharpens iron at the end of the day.
Because when I first started wrestling at Whitewater, I don't think I scored on anybody in 3 or 4 weeks. My first 3 or 4 weeks there,
Sure.
And then all of a sudden I made a pivot, I made a change, and all of a sudden I was beating a lot of guys in the room. And I think, like, would that happen at Iowa, or is there just certain skill thresholds or toughness thresholds that it's a different level?
I think there definitely is where iron sharpens iron, but you need to actually put in better work than the other guy for so much longer periods of time. Like you hear when Kobe, how he literally did 3 basketball practices per day. Like he's so much practice ahead of everyone else, and you have to do that in wrestling. You can't just magically flip a switch, especially when you're having the same coaching as that guy. You have to do something different. Everyone's going to the same practice. What are you doing outside of the practice? That's the difference.
So the Kobe Bryant mentality was do 3 practices a day, because essentially he's doing an entire basketball season in a month or 2.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
While you're doing a quarter of one.
Right.
So there's no way that he can't pass you with that mentality. But I think with the wrestling world, it might be a little bit different, because you can shoot basketballs all day and not get injured. But if you practice 3 times a day, tough wrestling or even just working technical stuff, I think it catches up to your body.
Yeah. And that's why I said smart wrestling. I didn't say hard wrestling.
Yes.
You have to. You can't just run into a mat as hard as you can thinking something's going to change. You just have to get better at wrestling. Sometimes that's not going harder.
I think the other thing that's really challenging about wrestling is that is it a 6-month season? It's from it's September.
So it
is the preseason, right? When it starts, right?
So competition starts for November and it ends for us in March.
And I always remember the first official day, at least for D3, was October 12th. It was always on my birthday. We would do our first practice at midnight so we could be the first team in the country practicing. And so it's October to March. It's such a long season and such a brutal sport that what do you think the percentage of guys are that go to the national tournament and are not injured in some way?
Oh gosh, it has to be everyone's hurt at some point.
At least
everyone is
up.
hurting, right? Someone's got a bad night's sleep too the day before too. They woke up on the wrong side. I would literally beg to say no one is 100% healthy. Of course, no one's 100% healthy, but
so
I don't know. It's tough to think how many.
Because I think that's unique compared to a lot of sports. I guess fighting shares this too, like the amount of UFC guys that go in there and they had some crazy thing happen a few weeks before the fight. But you'll see it in basketball, out for 4 weeks, sprained ankle. And it's and then you see a guy like Spencer Lee, torn ACL, torn MCL, torn everything. And he just he looks like the Michelin man, because he's just bandaged up and he just goes out there and wins the national tournament.
That's badass.
What did you learn or take away from a guy like Spencer Lee? One of the greatest of all time college wrestlers.
Standards. If it's one word, it's standards. When we talked to him after he lost to Matt Ramos in the semifinals, he said that he hasn't accomplished any one of his wrestling goals yet. Are you kidding me? Hodge Trophy winner, 3-time NCAA champion. He needed that 4th national title, and then he goes off to World and Olympic. When I asked him what the legacy of Spencer Lee is to be, it's to win as many World and Olympic titles as he can. Literally, that's it.
So the national tournament in college didn't even really mean that much to him?
Oh, that's why I didn't wrestle. Why would it matter? He needed 4. He was getting ready for that world championship to make the world championships at the U.S. Open. So it's why would he want to wrestle back for 3rd? And if you think about it, when everyone's saying, that's the stupidest, he's going to regret it later on, you're looking at a guy who has standards above anyone else in the sport.
It was interesting to give people the background. There's this really well-known wrestler, Spencer Lee, wrestles for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And was he undefeated all of college? Or?
No, he didn't. He's lost a couple times, and like he's got pinned once before. I know that, but he was just a guy who was so dominant that
3-time national title winner, and on pace to become one of the handful of guys that have won 4 national titles. So like instant Hall of Famer of the college wrestling world. He got upset in the semifinals by the kid from Northwestern and Purdue, and everyone turned on. Like, it was weird to see the wrestling community dog him for like one. It's like when the fat guy is yelling at the quarterback on the screen. It's like, dude, you haven't done an athletic movement in the last 20 years and you're screaming at this professional athlete. That's the sense I got from the wrestling world, was they threw a legend under the bus at the first sign of a loss or a failure. Right. What did you make of all that?
Well, I remember watching it, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, I think Spencer's going to lose this match. He got 30 seconds left, and the dude needed a takedown. And I was like, he's just trying to stall it out right now. And when it happened, I'm like, okay, like what does this mean? One, anyone can be beaten on any given day. Of course, that's always a thing. And I personally knew that he wasn't like gonna wrestle. Like, I'm like, why would he? Because he's so hurt already. Like, you got to admit, like, he does not give himself enough credit for being how hurt he is and still competing.
So was he not fully recovered? So that he's won his junior year with a torn
both ACLs.
Both ACLs.
Yeah.
If that was us, we wouldn't even be getting out of bed. No. And this guy's competing against D1 wrestlers.
And here's the thing too. Leading after the NCAA's, leading up to the U.S. Open, which is the tournament. If you win, you get a bid to face someone to make it to the World Championships. He didn't have a practice in him leading up to that because his knees. He couldn't practice, but he can still, because he's pushing himself that far. His one job was to control his weight.
What would it take for a guy like that to get healthy? Because one thing, again, we were talking about overtraining in wrestling, and how long he's been wrestling, probably since he was 4, 5?
Yeah.
It beats up the body so much that I think this is where Penn State shines, where maybe Iowa is starting to figure this out, is overtraining in the wrestling world is not always the best thing you can do for the longevity of the athlete. Like, I was astonished to see Dan Gable, he retired after 4 years after college, right? He retired really young in life, didn't he? So. And it's because his body was already beat to shit so bad that he couldn't even do anything.
Yeah. So,
I guess walk me through that mentality, because it's in some ways in the wrestling world, it's a badge of honor to be like the guy that's grinding as much as you can, but it also can backfire. So it's kind of a tightrope to walk.
Yeah.
What have you seen play out amongst the greats, and then in your own wrestling, how do you balance that?
I would say what the greats do at the sport is they know when to compete. Like, they know when to put the toe in the line for the national title, right? To the World Olympic title. When they go in practice, they don't just pretend that, well, they do probably pretend it's the Olympics, but they don't, I guess, push themselves, and they don't have that ego.
They know their body well enough to know when it's time to rest a little bit.
Yes, 100%. And you got to understand how much of a wrestling is just on your own other than wrestling. Like how I said, the best way to get better at wrestlers is to get better at wrestling. Mm-hmm. And so that means doesn't wrestling hard. What that means is better sleep, better food. And over a consistent period of time, that's how guys are going to get so good. No one just is like, okay, I'm going to practice every day for 5 years and I'm going to see how good I get. But then you got to think about your coaching too. You got to think about your partner. What if your partner sucks? You're going to morph to that same level. So it's really interesting. And that's why Penn State is so controlling right now in NCAA wrestling, is because you look at every guy who's graduated is just training there, and it's in Happy Valley, just nowhere else to go. Wake up, train, eat good, win.
Dude, imagine walking into a room as a freshman where all you have is like 2, 3, 4-time national champions that have graduated, ready to just beat your ass into oblivion.
Yeah.
Like, it's like getting thrown into a pot of boiling water, and you either have to boil with them right away or you get cooked.
Oh, 100%. And I think for Penn State, they do, of course, have their match days and stuff, but for the most part, it's like play wrestling. So this is like...
Have you gotten to go inside the room at all?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they pretty... I've heard that Cal is pretty guarded about who they let in.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Every time we've been to Penn State, twice we've been there, but for like kind of like a week, we've never seen Kale.
Do you think he knows that you guys are there and he's like, oh, camera in the room, I'm not appearing?
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah?
I don't know. No, because
Dude, he is like a samurai of the sport.
Yeah,
Like he is
I
so
know.
intriguing to me. And I also know that he can still kick ass. So like,
yeah.
he was piecing up Usman.
Yeah, Usman.
My friend John Broughton is out there. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah.
He just like, yep, Cal Sanderson did to me what you would expect. Like, but how old is he now? 40s?
Yeah, you would think, right?
And he's
At least.
still like, I guess I really admire a guy like that. He does not care for 1 second if there's an article or video made about him.
Yeah.
He isn't like, he is just like living as a total.
He's so in his lane.
It's almost like wrestling is a religion, and he's like he's like the Pope.
Yeah.
He does not leave to do anything that is outside of wrestling, it seems like. Like he is just so dialed in
Yes.
and unconcerned with the outside world. Wrestling is his thing.
Yeah, and absolutely. And how you touch it based on religion, that's what I think he brings to Penn State is all of those guys are religious. I'm going to say 99% because I don't know 100%, but everyone has shared their religion, like on the podcast when we had him on.
The Brand brothers are religious too, aren't they?
I would think so.
I think a lot of it's almost like,
Can I stop you there though?
Yes.
I say this though because there is Penn State secrets 100%. Because when we had Nick Lee on the podcast, who is now going to wrestle in the World Championships, I asked him what this meant. It was a red circle with a line through it and the cricket emoji just on Instagram. It was like no cricket, and I asked him like, what does that mean? He started with, well, I hope Kale doesn't get mad at me for this, but. So it's just
what
like
did
these
it
little
mean?
things. It meant that there was a story in the Bible of how I'm going to probably get this wrong, but the Israelites went to this place and they were trying to take it over, but they came back saying they can't take it over. We're like crickets to them. And the moral of the story was that they went and the goal is to like take what's yours in a sense. So
I have noticed that in the wrestling world where it's almost like, I don't want to say fanatics, it's a bad thing about religion, but it's almost to be that intense about the sport that it would make sense that they're that intense about their religion. And it's almost like it's an act of surrender too. Like when you surrender everything to God, it's almost like, and the Muslims are very similar. I don't think Cal Sanderson, I don't know if they would care if I say this, they're like, it's like the Muslims too, but like the really devout religious people, when you surrender everything to God, that's when everything starts to receive. It's like a weird paradox that with surrender comes everything. And I see that in the wrestlers. It's almost like to put yourself in that many difficult, uncomfortable positions, having God as their foundation really helps them.
100%. And with that, you get purpose, right? I think that's the biggest thing is when you have religion in your life, you have vision, you have purpose. All these good characteristics you want, you're going to get.
Does religion play a part in your journey as a wrestler?
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. This past year was one I took, I'm taking religion more seriously. I'm actually like, this is the first year I'm like reading the Bible.
What do you think?
It's awesome. So
Yeah.
my girlfriend actually got us these books too. So we have the Bible and then we have these books that we can go through like each little book in there. So like I think we have the book of James right now and the book of Moses we kind of go through. But it's really interesting and it's of course been so beneficial in our relationship personally. And she actually got me a quote of in the Bible, one from Proverbs there, and it's like what the man thinketh in the heart, so is he. And so like that's one that's like it really like hits me. So
yeah, there's a lot of universal wisdom that you can pull out of the Bible, like what you just said, what you think you become.
Yes.
And I think there is a lot of profound insights in there. I remember we had Olympic gold medalist Ben Peterson visit us. Does he visit the Parkside room at all?
No.
I know he's in a few wrestling rooms, but he would visit at least once a week. He would visit the Whitewater room, and then there would be a Bible study after practice. And so much of his journey in wrestling was fueled by his beliefs. And we would also go to his camp. Have you ever been to Ben Peterson's
I
camp?
haven't, but I always see him around.
Dude, Ben Peterson has like a Bible wrestling camp. Well, and it's really pleasant and nice. Like you pray before you eat. There's stories that you share, but there is something like I don't see this in the jiu-jitsu world. I don't see this really in the boxing world, but there does seem to be a correlation between high-level wrestlers and Christianity.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there's people you've been around that you see this as well, but I see it so much in the wrestling community now. Like you look at the wrestlers winning NCAAs, like you got Aaron Brooks, you got David Carr, now Keegan's doing this too, how their captions are just like kind of Bible verses. That's just like all it is. And I didn't see this, maybe 4 years ago, but now it's growing.
I don't see it in any, like in jiu-jitsu, it's more like yo, bro, I got some mushrooms. You want to try it? Or, it's a little bit.
What about like the keep jiu-jitsu gay?
What is that?
Really?
What is
That's,
keep jiu-jitsu gay?
Yeah.
I know a few Brazilians that would want to choke you for saying that.
Yeah, no, it's a huge thing in like Texas because they got it's like the two teams, right?
The
And one
B
of the
team and John Donaher.
Yeah.
The Gordon Ryan side.
Yes, and I don't know which one. Wherever Craig Jones is at.
Craig Jones is the B team. Yeah, I could see him saying a quote like that.
Yeah, and so they have like shirts of "Keep Jiu-Jitsu Gay," and I guess it's really political. Like they actually mean it, like gay people doing jiu-jitsu. Like it's actually really interesting.
Well,
Like-
the only jumping off point I can think of for that is I did one visit at a Cal Poly for a wrestling visit, and the heavyweight there was gay, and no one. I was wondering how that dynamic was going to look in the locker room. No one cared. Like it was very casual, and he's like, "What are you fuckers doing next week?" Like I'm going to bring my boyfriend. I was like, and no one said anything about it. I was like, oh, that to me is a cool community where.
yeah, sure.
But I feel like it would be tough if I was gay. I feel like wrestling would be a very tough sport to navigate. Same with jiu-jitsu. I remember there was a gay guy at the jiu-jitsu gym, and he was cool in class, but then like you would post something on your story, and he put like the heart, like I heart emojis.
Oh no!
And it was just like, dude, like
Yeah.
you were just I was cool. We grappled, but now that I know that you like have a weird, it just
Oh no, yeah, that's tough. I don't know.
One thing I wanted to ask you about NIL, which is the college. I wonder if this happened when you were a freshman, but college athletes can officially make money off their likeness.
Yes.
Looking back, it seems absurd that they never were able to.
Yeah.
And it's the guys that lost hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars not being able to, like they sold a jersey with Reggie Bush's name on it. They made millions, and Reggie
that's
Bush made
crazy.
not a penny. I don't know if there's going to be any lawsuits where people can sue.
I think there is. I think he's in one right now.
Good. And I hope he gets some dough. What has that been like? And is it kind of liberating that you can pursue what you want to and still be a college athlete and give people the background on NIL?
Yeah, 100%. A huge impact in my YouTube career was, you probably know him, Ryan Trahan. And so he was,
Love that guy.
Yeah, so he was a cross country runner, and he actually ended up dropping out of school, Division I school, his freshman year, because they said he couldn't do both. He couldn't be the face of his company. And when this was going on, I was still in high school. I'm like, dude, if I'm getting chills now thinking about it, because like I couldn't imagine not doing it because I want to do it. Right? Like I want to do it so bad. But thankfully, when I remember exactly when that moment hit, when it officially got passed, and like that second we could start making money, I was actually filming a podcast with Crosby. We were talking about it, that it's going to be released at some point like during the week. I was just like so hyped, like holy cow, like let's go. And at this time, I hated working my jobs. I did some work in like masonry, like wheeling like cement. I worked at Serigraph, which is like little manufacturing, just sit on a line, assembly line, doing stuff. And I just couldn't. And I'm like, YouTube needs to work out. Like I need to go all in. And if that was now, it's possible being a competitor in the NCAA.
I guess I just wonder about the mentality of the schools that made that rule, because you would think that if they empowered Ryan Trahan or yourself or whoever it is that has an audience and has a love for the sport, that would only attract people to the school, to the stadium.
Yeah.
That would be a net positive for everyone involved. Like it seemed like it only came from a place of greed that they would have made that decision.
It did. It definitely seemed like the only reason that they're not is because they want the control.
What does it look like behind the scenes? Like, is this something that you have to talk about with your coach? Is this something that you have to talk about with administration? Like, hey, Cayden, your last post was a little, you talked to, so-and-so, like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah. Like ideally, it's really weird because me being at Division II school, we're really not in the spotlight of all the NIL. I think I'm an outlier being like a Division II wrestling YouTuber because one, there's really no wrestlers, doing what I'm doing, and two, it's a Division II school, so like it's not like Iowa's in some trouble, Penn State's in some trouble, whatever it may be, but. Ideally, I just have to sign in on this website, kind of put my deals on there. But personally, I don't like doing that.
You have to disclose what you're getting?
Ideally.
They like you to disclose?
Yes.
This is to the school, or is this an NCAA thing?
I think both. But I think mostly to the school. I think mostly to the school.
Do you think that benefits you all to tell them? Like, why do they have to be in your pockets?
Well, I don't know why they do. I don't. That's why I'm gonna say I don't do it. Don't.
I wouldn't if I were you either. I mean, I don't see like
like the reason that
they're not telling the administrator that's having you do that isn't showing their paycheck, you know, to you.
Yeah. I think that the main thing is they don't want you to have a sponsor that also sponsors the school, because then that gets weird, I guess. Still makes no sense to me, but at least it's...
You tell me who your sponsors are, I'll show you who mine are.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, so Haribo, like the Haribo place is like right around here.
The gummy bear company.
Yeah.
Yeah, their factory is...
Yeah, just
somewhere
right
down
over
the
there.
road.
But they sponsor the whole arena there, and the big sponsor. Like, if I got a deal with Haribo, I think that there would be some issues, because that's what they've been telling me, but I don't know. You
guys got a whole ass stadium from this group, and if they want to send me a little bit of money, you're gonna...
I know. I don't know how that would work, but it hasn't come up yet, so.
Does the school ever look at you as like, all right, Cayden, we got this big event, like let's say not connected to wrestling, like how does that work? Like, what do they... Because you have influence, with responsibility comes power. Do you ever get asked to like contribute to something or do anything?
No. I'm literally just like a regular kid. Like, they don't ask anything extra of me. I'm literally just doing my thing, and that's just how it is.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it seems like it's about as nice as it could be.
Yeah.
Like, it is a cool setup.
Yeah. It is a great setup here, and I'm really happy to be here at Parkside.
Do you know of any college athletes that are just absolutely balling off of this?
Frick, yeah.
Who are some people that come to mind?
Okay, well, you know that. Have you heard about the allegations of the NCAA wrestlers, like being bought, like $300,000 if you come to our school, stuff like that?
Oh, no, I was going to reference, I just know that Iowa had a scandal about betting.
Yes.
Let's cover the betting net after this. But so is that legal? Can you just say, can you buy people to come to your school?
I'll tell you what is legal is for really rich people at the school to say, hey, I want you to come to my grocery store and take a picture and post it. I'll give you $100,000 if you do that for...
So it's like the roundabout way of making it official.
It's like the deliverables do not, like, they're not getting $100,000 worth, but it's because you're there. So I think it's because of this opportunity, and, you know, especially within colleges, there's people who got deep pockets, you know,
Is that in the wrestling world as much as more of like football, basketball?
No, it's definitely still in the wrestling world.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you think it's possible that there'll be an era where the new team that dominates is simply the most well-funded team?
Yeah, and that's why you see people saying so much like Penn State is getting all the best wrestlers. Well, it's because they're buying them out. But then that other argument is there. Well, that's where the best wrestling is in the country. So who doesn't want to go there?
Is it a mixture? Is Penn State leveraging the NIL to get kids there?
Well, I talked to Mitchell Messenbrink, who just won a U20 World Championship.
Kid's an animal.
Yeah, and he was saying that Penn State does everything right. They don't even walk the line. Like they like it would never happen. He wasn't paid.
Like a high integrity place.
But I'm not gonna expose the name, but I've talked with someone really well known in the wrestling community that says, of course, Kale is paying them. Like, there's something that's going on where they're just getting like stipends.
So, what do you think? I mean, I don't know if I necessarily think that's
and
bad.
It's yeah,
I can see
it's just
both
not transparent.
sides.
I just wish it was transparent. That's the biggest thing.
I guess maybe what the old timers would say is like, well, back in my day, we won national titles because of our culture, our dedication. But now when money gets thrown in, does it contaminate the sport or does it enhance the sport?
Yeah, I think it's great for wrestlers, right? Because wrestlers are getting paid. Wrestling was always known as a sport. No one's like, you were making dozens of dollars wearing pajamas and competing.
Wrestling used to be the sport that was impossible to make a living off of unless you transition into fighting.
Exactly. And now I think that's becoming more of a reality, and I do think that's good for wrestling, yeah.
Well, then, if you think about it, if you want wrestling to grow and to be the best, you have to make an incentive. And if you want people to dedicate their life to something, they have to be able to make a living doing it. So to me, I guess the way out, like the North Star I would hold up is if it enhances the sport of wrestling, can grow the sport of wrestling, and brings the level of competition up, let's view it as a net positive.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with everything you said there. Yeah. As long as wrestling is getting better, no one's being harmed from this, no one's in the wrong, it's great for wrestling.
But now there are certain kids that can get a full D1 scholarship and get a hefty chunk of change. That's what's happening for some kids?
I believe so, yeah.
So some kids are leaving school with money at their disposal. They're not in debt, and they're ready to start life.
Yeah.
That seems like a good thing to me.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a great path if, there's younger wrestlers listening. Like, there are opportunities. I don't know how it goes up because I'm a D2 kid, but if you're really, really good, you might get some good opportunities.
Who's someone that you've met in the wrestling world that really stands out to you as either their personality, their work ethic, like a human that you can almost not even believe exists? Like, who's someone like that you got to meet?
I would say Gable Stevenson, for sure.
Tell the people who he is and what you learned about him.
So Gable Stevenson, WWE superstar, Olympic champion, Hodge Trophy winner. Like in wrestling, like he's won it. He's gonna probably win the world championship.
Heavyweight from Minnesota.
Heavyweight from Minnesota. And he was actually our first guest on the podcast. Believe it or not, it was so random. It came up, but just perfectly put together guy. Like, always clean shaven, gets like his haircut like twice a week or something like that.
Wow.
Just set up in a beautiful home. You know, he's got his like girlfriend there and got his 2 dogs. House is beautiful and just well put together. He knows what he needs to do and he's really well spoken. But like the waves that he's making in the sport, of course, there's been other wrestlers like Kurt Angle to go into WWE, but now he's doing that too. And of course, how good he is at wrestling, like some are, calling him the GOAT, and if he continues wrestling, he damn could be.
In WWE wrestling?
I would say in real wrestling.
Real wrestling.
But yeah, in WWE, of course, there's it's interesting too because as a WWE athlete, you're not in control of who you fight or
It's so weird.
They tell you what to do.
And they tell you who's gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. And
how much of it is choreographed?
All of it, right?
Well, I think so. Not like because I was listening to a Ric Flair Theo Von episode, and back in the day, I think it used to be a little bit more rougher. Like you'd actually like beat the hell out of each other, and you could. But now it seems like it's in. But I guess what I'm wondering is this: how much of it is really good improv athletes? They know that you have to win, and they figure out on the spot these are the moves, and how much of it is, hey, this is what the entire 15 match is going to look like. We're going to practice it until we get it down to a T.
I would love to see the behind the scenes of that because there's nothing like that right now, right?
It must be weird as a competitive person to get told you're going to lose this time. Even, especially, let's say a guy like Gable Stevenson that knows in a real fight, he would beat the hell out of pretty much everyone on that roster, I would say.
Yeah. Man, I really would wonder. But, back to what you were saying, like, who do you think just doesn't exist? I just want to bring up the story because I think it's so cool. And him being just, I think, 1 or 2 years older than me, he was still going to class after he won the Olympics with over $1 million in the bank.
Yay.
Like, that's crazy.
Wow. So is he someone that you would say is highly disciplined?
Yes. I would say highly disciplined, highly motivated, highly talented. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else he does.
I think that also opens up their career path because imagine if you were like, how many kids really want to go out and get a manufacturing job, a corporate cubicle job, and now there's a way to turn your sport into a living. It just seems like there's never been a cooler era to wheel and deal as a young man in this world. Like
100%.
What you can do with your audience, what you can do with your platform. Walk me through what the goal is this season. You're trying to be a national champion.
Yes, sir.
Where do you stack up right now? Like if there was a preseason rankings, where do you think you would be?
So, well, I'll tell you this. Going into the national tournament, I was ranked 2nd. Wow. And I DMP'd, lost the first round, and ended up losing to a guy I faced lots of times during 4 times that season. But
and did you beat him most of the times during the season?
No, he actually pinned me. I only beat him 1 time, and at regionals, I placed 1st and he placed 3rd. So wrestling's weird like that. I mean, every match.
And especially guys that you face multiple times. I almost would rather, like, if a guy beats me and it's a really close match, I like my odds in the second match to 100%. Come back and...
Totally. Yeah, totally. I remember I wrestled, like, the previous match before I beat him, I got pinned in a minute. And so it's like me knowing that, I know I can beat this kid. It's so weird wrestling. It's so weird. Anyone can win at any given day, and especially at nationals when the lights are on and this is it. Like, this is what you practice for. Like, all the hard practices, all the times that you're waking up early to run, sweating, losing weight, this is the payoff.
What weight will you be wrestling this year?
141.
Okay, so you're going to stay there for your whole college career.
Yeah, I plan on staying there for my whole college career.
How hard is that to be? What do you walk around at?
So probably right now, I'd say 55, 155.
And you're already lean and in shape.
Yeah, I'm lean, I'm in shape, but I think definitely once you're practicing 5 times per week, I can probably get down to 148 or 147 after practice, just not worrying about cutting weight. But the thing about cutting weight is I just love just drinking legit as much as I can, because if you drink like 2 gallons during a day at practice, you're gonna lose 8 pounds. They're like, people don't, like, that's crazy.
Which is really good for a 141 pounder too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and then after
because I remember like seeing 125ers walking in the room, they're like, oh, I gotta cut weight, and then they lose like 2 pounds in a practice.
Right.
That would be so frustrating, because if you really want to, my angle as a weight cutter was that I'd always rather get an extra workout in, but eat properly, drink properly, than just like not drink and not eat and not work out extra.
No, 100%. That's a great point. I think I've struggled with that in, even just last year, how I'm like, well, I'm close on weight. I just want to work out less because I don't have the energy, other than drinking good, having like a little something good to go in my system. So I think that I can definitely improvise that, and I've been eating healthier this summer, and especially now, this is my first time in my own apartment. Usually we were back at like almost kind of like the dorm, so we couldn't really make our food, and we were on the meal plan.
Cooking for yourself has got to be such a big difference maker in your diet.
100%, because I can control everything that's going in my system. I don't have to just go to the Brookside, or the Brooks, whatever it's called, and have a cheeseburger.
Eat cafeteria bullshit.
Yeah. It's no, because it's literally the civilian diet. You can't eat what everyone else eats. Look at everyone. That's the reason. Obesity is like 50% in America or something like that?
Does that blow your mind?
Like, I feel like we're numb to it, but it should.
Yeah, isn't it? I guess it's something that we've almost rolled over and accepted, it feels like.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
Shouldn't that be like
red flags just going on?
Like as broadcasted as, let's say, COVID was in recent memory. Yeah. That should be what fucking obesity is in this country. Like every day the news is like, we've had 132 deaths from obesity.
Yeah.
Like it's get outside, get running. Like they should act like we're in a state of emergency, but for some reason we're just like, cool with it.
It just comes down to people just drifting through life, lack of purpose, lack of vision. They got the TV, they got their phone. There's so many distractions. No one knows what they want anymore.
Do you see that amongst a lot of your peers? And maybe, is it people that are wrestling have got to, like you probably are kind of insulated in a world where a lot of people are really highly motivated, right? With the wrestling world. Like, do you see amongst other people that are going to school, like a lot of lost men?
Yeah, I definitely would say so. I mean, for me, I try to take as many online classes as I can. So I didn't even really go to class last year at all.
Why do you do that?
YouTube. I can set my own schedule. If I need to do this test, I can do the test. I don't, just having that free way of being able to do it on my own time, that was the biggest thing for me. So.
Okay, so you are definitely in the running to be a national champion. And you're not a kid that's coming off third string on the bench. Right. I'm going to win a national title.
Right.
You are probably all the people that look at the sport, like you're going to be a front runner this year.
And here's a tough thing too, with how much people are following me. Everyone, it's a weird relationship, but everyone is like, yeah, he'll win nationals. Like, because he's Cayden. He's a YouTube guy. There's a reason he gets this much likes, is because he's going to win, right? But guess what?
Is it a weird pressure?
Yeah, because guess who has to show up every single day? Guess who still has to get better? Guess who still didn't All-American yet? Like me. Like, there's so much that I have to do that people really don't understand. They see it online, they think it's easy, but there is so much work that will have to go in for me to do that. And I'm excited to share that journey.
Man, I feel like just saying, let's just say you're on the other side of this year and you've won a national title, being able to carry that with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
How many people can you bump into and they're like, I'm a national champion?
Yeah, that's
just
badass.
The ring to it is so alluring, and it's like chasing the holy grail, kind of. Like when you were a national champion, like you were holding the golden chalice in your hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, it's weird too, like being D2, because we had Real Woods on, and he lost in his national finals in Division 1. And I was talking to Crosby about this, if I would say, like, wouldn't it be cool if you won NCAAs and I won NCAAs and we'll be the top 2 wrestlers in the country? But it's like, it's different divisions. So that plays a weird role with me.
The top guys in D2, because I know like Jordan Newman went to Midlands and he took 4th place, or did he take 2nd?
Well, even Shinhoster, he got 2nd at Midlands from Whitewater. Another
D3 guy. So like there is some upper echelon in each division that I think could compete. Yeah. Like if you had a bracket of, let's say, the All-Americans from each division, do you think there's guys that would be, and then they had one big tournament themselves? guys from D2 and D3 might end up on the podium.
Yeah, of course. I think it comes down to that the top guys in D1, there's a reason they're top. I think they're always going to be at the top. But for the other like 6, like it's open game, right? And even we saw it with Spencer, like he got beat. Anyone can get beat. It's just who can compete on that given day.
It was fun. Like I don't even know how high on the depth chart they were, but like when Northwestern would send their, some of their backups or whatever to a tournament, like to beat some of the kids that were like, oh, you got recruited for this shit?
Right.
I'm doing this for free and I still wiped it up with you, know?
That's got to be a great feeling to have for sure.
You become national champ, maybe even a 2-time national champ.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better.
What do you view as an ideal career?
Ideal career, it would definitely continue with wrestling media. Whether that be continuing like how, I wrestling with, Spencer Lee or, Bo Bartlett, how we made that great wrestling video. People like love that. And I think wrestling needs that. I think wrestling needs more personalities. That's what's going to make it grow. That's why WWE is so big, because there are storylines. It's so, people can follow it. And there's these like people that you seek their qualities. In wrestling, it's hard to see.
Is it almost like wrestling needs their Conor McGregors and Sugar Seans?
Yeah.
Because there's the guys that just show up and fight, like let's say a Max Holloway, or like they show up and they bang Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
But they don't want to contribute to the circus element of it. They just want to show up and fight. Do you think wrestling needs people that somewhat make it a circus for it to become big?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's why you see Gable flexing after stuff. Like no one's doing that. Like he was like really the first guy to, I'd say take his backflip and really make it his. Like he's the guy that does the backflip. People have done backflips before all the time, but he's the guy to make it big because the way he does it.
Maybe we leave off with this. There's a lot of people out there enterprising, chasing their dreams, trying to make things happen. What kind of advice do you have for people out there?
The advice I would say is you literally cannot fail if you don't give up. And that's the biggest thing. Just how we talked about your life might go off in different directions, but guess what? Something will click. Like something's got to click. If you don't stop, you're gonna find success in some way. And you have to literally just show up and embrace the opportunity. Just do it.
It is amazing how many people will give themselves up on their dream or just kind of accept, all right, nothing's going to become, nothing's going to happen. And
the biggest thing is you can't be a product of your environment if you're in a bad environment. You have to do something else. You have to have whatever you want, blast through your ears, what you want to be, and that's what you are.
How can people find you?
People can find me Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, just my name, Cayden Henschel.
Can you spell your last name for everybody?
Yeah, Henschel.
And what's your blood type, or like what's your not blood type, but your what kind of white you got in you? Like what's your ethnicity?
I'm Caucasian.
But like Henschel, is that German?
German, I think.
German?
Yeah.
Salute.
100% badass.
100% American bad boy. All right, folks. This has been a fun episode. We will see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.